Hi there, I'm Miss Laura with the Wichita Falls Arts Council, and today we're going to make a star and a origami paper balloon that folds flat. First folded flat and has a little hole at the top. If you blow into it, it blows up into a balloon. And we're going to do this using 2 sheets of origami paper. Your paper may have different colors on the both side. It may have a white side and a color side, or it may be the same color on both sides, and either is fine. Okay. So we're going to start with the star. So I'm going to take my first sheet of paper. I'm going to fold it in half into a rectangle. So I'm placing it white side up. Again, if it's the same color on both sides, doesn't matter which side you start with. And I'm lining up the corners and the edges. And I'm holding these lined up corners and edges with my fingers up top here, and I'm using my thumbs to smooth out that fold line, really give it a good crease. The next step is to make sure my paper is facing the correct way. I want to make sure that my little open flaps are facing up for this next step. Or else I may end up cutting my star into 2 pieces. So I'm going to take this bottom left corner here and I'm going to fold it up at an angle. And I'm folding it so that this right edge meets this top edge. Holding it with my fingers and then using my thumb to flatten down the fold. Now I'm going to take this little flap and I'm going to open it up, so then back to a rectangle. Once I'm back open to a rectangle, I'm going to take this top right corner and I'm going to fold it down at an angle. I'm using my fingers to hold it down. And then my other hand to flatten that fold. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to open it back up to a rectangle. And you may have noticed, because we folded an angle up and then down, we created an X with the fold lines. Here, here. The middle of the X is important for our next fold. So I'm just going to mark it on my paper so we can see exactly what I'm talking about. Right there at the center of the X, we're going to fold to with this left corner of our paper. So I'm taking this bottom left corner, I'm picking it up, and I'm folding it so that the corner hits the very center point of that X. So again, I'm taking this bottom left corner here, and I'm folding it over so that it touches the very center of the X. And I'm taking one finger and I'm holding down the corner as it's touching the center of the X to make sure it doesn't move away. And then using my other hand to flatten this fold. Unlike the previous 2 folds, I'm going to keep this flap folded over. And now, I'm going to take this flap and I'm going to fold it back in half. So I'm taking this flap right here, the little corner that was touching the middle of the X, and I'm folding it back in half. Now we're going to identify this edge here. After we fold this flap back in half, we've created a new line at the edge of this flap. I'm going to take this bottom right corner here. I'm going to fold it up to this line. So I'm going to take this whole right section here and I'm folding it in half so it meets that line created by my left flap. Now I'm going to take the whole thing, I'm going to pick it up, holding either side with my left hand and my right hand, and I'm going to fold it backwards in half. So I'm taking it from here, I can see this line down the middle, and I'm folding it back in half. Okay, so one more time, I have it here, and I'm folding it back in half. I'm going to flip over this piece until I have this little triangle flap up front. If you can't see the triangle, then you may need to flip your piece over. At this point, I'm going to draw a line on this flap and I'm going to make one cut with my scissors. So I'm going to look at just this little triangle on the front and I'm going to make a mark. If I'm looking about halfway down this left side of this triangle, that's about right here. That's about the halfway point between the very bottom of this triangle and the top. And then I'm going to look at this little right point here of the triangle, and I'm going to make a line connecting this midway point from the top and the bottom of the triangle, and then this little corner here. And I have a line. I'm going to cut on this line. So this portion of the star, this little sliver here, that is your actual star. The rest of this is garbage. So I'm going to take my scissors and holding the portion that is my star, because I don't want it to move, I'm going to cut this whole thing all together. And when I open it up, I have a star. So it's a little wonky right now. I can refold some of these lines so that it sits a little nicely, or sits nicer. And I'm not creating any new fold lines. I'm just refolding some of the lines that have already been folded in a different direction. So I'll take this fold here that's sitting right in the middle of one of my star's 5 points, and I'm going to make sure that I'm folding all of those folds down. Go around any fold line that's in the middle of a point, I'll just fold down. It's like the rest of these are down, and then any fold line in between the points, I'll fold up. Oops. Okay, and when you open it up, now you have a little star. I'm going to put my star away and move on to the next piece. Got a little sheet of paper to make the origami balloon. So if your paper is two-sided, it has white on one side, then you don't really need to do anything. But if your paper is the same color on both sides, so if it was purple on both sides, then you want to mark one side with a W, and that'll stand for the white side of your paper. So just put a little W. And we'll make mine a little bit darker. So the first thing we need to do is place our paper so it's either white side or W side up. And we're going to take this bottom corner here and we're going to fold up in half into a triangle, lining up the corners and the edges, using my fingers to hold that corner in place and using my other fingers to flatten out the edges. Once I fold in half into a triangle, I'm going to open it up. So I'm back to W, or my white side. I'm going to fold in half into a triangle in the other direction. Now I'm going to unfold and place my paper so that it is color side up, or there's no letter. And I'm going to take the bottom half of my paper and fold up in half into a rectangle. Then open it up, rotate my paper, and fold it in half into a rectangle in the other direction, just like we did with the triangles. We're folding in half in both directions. Now we're going to open up our paper and flip it over so that it's either W side up or white side up. And it should look like a little tent right now, standing up. I'm putting it straight onto my table. I'm going to take my finger and press into the center all the way until I barely hit the table, and these little sides should pop up. They may not pop up a lot, and that's fine. I'm going to now take these two sides in either hand. So my right finger is touching this little fold on the side here. Note I'm not touching the corners, I'm just touching the sides. And then my left finger is touching the left side here, and I'm pushing them in together until they touch. So again, I'm taking both these sides and I'm pushing them in until they touch, and then taking the whole thing and pushing it forward into a triangle. So one more time, after the page is like a tent, I press all the way to the center, the two sides popped up. I take these two sides, I push them in until they touch, and then I take my thumbs in the back here and push the whole thing forward until it's a triangle. Once I have my triangle, I'm going to place it just like this in front of me. I'll zoom in. I need to fold both these little flaps, this one on the right here and this one on the left. I need to fold them up to this top point of the triangle. So I'll take this right side first and folding all the way up until that little corner hits the top point of the triangle, flatten that fold, and do the same thing with the left side. So now I have a diamond shape on my triangle. I'm going to flip it over and do the exact same thing. So flipping it over and back to a triangle. I'm going to take this right flap and this left flap and fold them both up to the top point of my triangle. So now I have a diamond with a line going down the center, and because I did the same thing to both sides, they are identical, so it doesn't matter which side you start with. I'm going to take these two corners on the right and the left, and I'm going to fold them to the very, very center, right to this line of my little diamond shape. So I'm taking this right corner here first, and I'm folding it right to the center. And I'll do the same thing with the left side. And then I'll flip it over and repeat, folding both the right and the left side to the very center. Get little triangles. So I flipped it over, and I'm folding the right side in just like I did the other side. And the left side. Okay, we are almost done. So if you're holding this in your hand, you'll notice one side has the little hole on the top and the other side does not, and it has these little flaps. You want to make sure your flaps are facing up, like mine. If you do not have flaps up top, then you probably just need to flip it over. If we look at the tops of our triangles, if our flaps are facing up, we may notice that on the top of the triangle is a little pocket. This is important for our next step. So this little triangle, all the triangles have a little pocket on the top of them. I'm going to now take each of these flaps, I'm going to fold them down. So it went from here to here. And I'm going to tuck the end of that little flap into the pocket of the little triangle underneath it. And now that flap is secured. I'm going to repeat the process for all 4 of these flaps. So I'm going to take this left one now. I'm going to fold it down. And then secure it in the little pocket of the triangle underneath. Then I'll flip it over and do the exact same thing. I'm taking this little flap up here, just like I did the other side. And then securing it in the pocket underneath, and same thing with this last one. Okay, at this point, your folding is done. You could attempt to blow up the balloon through this little tiny hole at the bottom. I like to sort of prepare the balloon by opening up the sides a little bit. And then blowing in the top. Balloon.